Welcome to the Test Guild Security Podcast, where we all get together to learn more about security testing with your host, Joe Calantonio.
Hey, it's Joe, and welcome to another episode of the Test Guild Security Podcast. Today we'll be talking with Owanate all about cybersecurity job hunting and other tips for your career. Owanate is the founder of Bestman Solutions that he started, I think, this year with a search and selection firm dedicated to meeting the demands for cybersecurity skills. He spent almost a decade recruiting in the cybersecurity field, and he's firmly embedded in the cybersecurity space, possessing a strong network of exceptional technical and non-technical security practitioners who have assisted leaders in meeting their business objectives. If you want to know what employers are looking for in these uncertain times, you don't want to miss this episode. Check it out. It's no secret that the number and complexity of applications are growing. But what is alarming is that 90% of security incidents result from exploits against defects in software. The need for better application security has never been higher, and Micro Focus Fortify is here to help. Fortify is the recognized market leader in application security, and it is the most comprehensive and scalable application security solution that works with your current development tools and processes. With Fortify, you can start security applications in a single day, including custom code, open source, or commercial components, and scale as your needs grow with an on-premise, as-a-service, or hybrid implementation. Check them out. Head on over to microfocus.com/app security. Hey, Owanate, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Great to have you. And I'll be honest, this is the first time actually having a recruiter on any of my podcasts. In the US, it might have like a negative connotation. So I'm just curious to know, like, what is the life of a recruiter? Sometimes people think they just try to get them into jobs and then it's done. But
Right.
It feels like you have more of a personal hands-on approach than that.
Yeah, listen, I'll tell you something. It's not, the connotation doesn't only lie in the US. There's a little bit of a stigma attached to my role as a recruiter. But the further you climb up in the food chain, the more you add value, and it can be seen as a pushy sales role. But as you get on, no one likes to be sold to. So it becomes more of a consultative role. But I'll tell you something, the stigma is strong, and it's not just in the US.
So how do you overcome that stigma? It sounds like you do more like you try to match the right person with the right job. You're not just trying to get a cut of whatever you get for getting that referral. Is that how it works?
Yes, that's how it works. I mean, how you get over that is you specialize within a certain area. I think I wouldn't advise recruiters to try and place any and everything, because you can't then be a specialist. You can't try and place a first line support person, then the next role you're working as a project manager, then the next role is a Java developer. You burn bridges because you're learning. And as you learn, you make mistakes. So if you're going to make mistakes, make them early, make them swift, and make them within one particular area. Now, how you overcome that is you don't give the hard sell. You just build relationships, and you need to be a people person. I won't say it's so much of a secret, but you don't need to do that much to stand out as a good recruiter. It's a case of knowing your subject matter, realize that you're dealing with people, not products. Get back to them when you say you're going to get back to them. And it sounds a bit of a cliche, but just be straightforward and honest with it. If I don't have anything for you, buddy, I don't have anything for you. But I'll tell you what we can do. We can try approach this organizations and so forth. So, and people respect you more because and the security, just digress a little bit, security is very incestuous. And what I find is that it's initially hard to get people's trust. A lot of the security practitioners start with the glass half empty. So you need to earn the trust. And once you've got the trust, then it's cool. It's okay. And then they tell their people, and you just spread organically from there. And it's free doing it that way rather than paying for expensive advertisements.
Very nice. So you said it's good to have the recruiter that actually specializes in an area. So why cybersecurity for your specialty then?
Oh, right. Well, number one, I fell into recruitment, and any recruiter, at least on this side of the pond, that says that they started recruitment consciously, I highly doubt that. So I fell into security, and I started placing IT first to third line support. Then I moved into operational risk at another organization, and that blends nicely with security. I'm fortunate enough to have started my career in recruitment security before it was such a big thing, when security was just seen as a blocker to the business. So I didn't have that much competition. So I wouldn't say that I chose security by design. I kind of fell into that as well. But once I got the taste for it, I wasn't going anywhere, because it's a difficult area to break into. But once you're there, you've gone so far into the river that there's no turning back. You're in it for the long haul.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it was a good choice, because when I look at things like the US has something called a job outlook for different professions, and one of them is cybersecurity professional. And I think they said the demand in this area for that type of role is going to be higher than average from 2018 to 2030. So why do you think there's such a demand now? Has there always been a demand for security, and that's how you actually said, oh yeah, this is probably an area I definitely want to focus in on?
I wasn't aware of the demand at the time when I got into it. A few years afterwards, I kept on hearing this figure being banded out, 4 million. And the figure was that there will be 4 million unfilled positions in security by 2022. So, I mean, when I started doing more research and becoming associated with more associations within security, I realized that there really was a skills gap. Now, it's a skills gap, and whether that skills gap is translated into actual positions is something else. So what I found still was that even though it's an area that's highly sought after and hiring managers want a lot of talent within there, they still want the best talent, and it's still tough to place people. So it's not a walk in the park by any means. So I wasn't aware that it would be such a, I won't call it lucrative, but reputationally lucrative path. Wasn't aware of that.
Gotcha. And so I'm curious to know also if things have changed. I think I watched a presentation of you in 2019. It's only a year ago, but it seems like a lifetime since everything we've been going through.
You're telling me.
Yeah. And I think you said that it was a candidate-driven market back then, and that candidates could choose between 3 to 4 opportunities. Is that still the case this year, especially with COVID-19?
On the whole, no. It's what we're finding is that there are more candidates on the markets fighting for fewer positions. But let's not forget that security is vast. Security is broad. We have the non-technical areas, the GRC, governance, risk and compliance, even data protection that falls under security, business continuity that also falls under security, policy assurance, and right the way through to the technical side of things, from pen testing to security architecture. There are certain areas that do have a strong skill shortage, and candidates can take their pick over where they go. Part of this, our key area, is DevSecOps and the need to promote more secure applications at a swifter pace. So there's a real skills gap here, with organizations wanting to marry up the release of swift applications with secure applications, and security practitioners who understand the language of the coders, and to create a more adhesive culture, as well as being able to roll out a secure application as swiftly as possible. That's a big skills gap, and that's certainly an area that will grow. I mean, the last record I checked was, I think it was an IBM study, that there are 111 billion lines of code written every year. I think you'll know it more than me, and every coder you speak to, I don't think you'll find one that says that he or she is going to write less code this year. It's just constantly increasing. So with that increase comes more vulnerabilities, and security is prime for that. But on the whole, it's a buyer's market out there, and a lot of hiring managers and firms can call the shots in terms of what they're looking for, and more importantly, what they pay as well, because of COVID. But this should not last forever. We are seeing some improvements.
Interesting. I think also in the same presentation, you mentioned that the security positions were harder to fill remotely for some reason, because people want everyone on site, where obviously that's not the case. Can't be the case during the COVID-19. So do you think there's going to be a shift where security positions will be more accessible through remote positions, or would it still be require someone to be on site?
No, most definitely. I think in terms of the mandates I'm working on now, and the mandates I've been prompted to work on in the future, unless there's a man managerial, and by man I don't mean gender, man or female managerial aspect of it, unless you're managing a team, then there is a very relaxed approach in regards to where you are based. Now, the more technical you are, the more relaxed the approach is. And even pre-COVID, I mean, most pen testers were working from home anyway. If you do get a pen tester for a contract position, one of the stipulations was, hey, I'm home based. Is the client cool with that? And they are becoming more cool with that over a number of different areas within security. So yes, we are expecting more flexibility, and I'm seeing more flexibility as to where individuals are based, and it actually opens things up as well, and actually works quite well for diversity reasons as well. Not to digress too much, but you have single parents with certain childcare responsibilities that can't travel halfway around the country to go work in the job of their dreams. But now at least there's an opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. And, you did mention there is a skills gap. There are some skill shortages, one of them being DevSecOps. So it seems like now where it was like a candidate can make and call the shots, it's like the employers are now being able to call the shots. So what could set someone up apart from other candidates in an employer's eyes in this times? Like any other skills besides DevSecOps, or is there any certifications you think are really hot that a security professional could have to help their chances of getting hired?
Yeah, in terms of certifications, I'll start off with that first. I think sometimes firms can be a little bit OCD about certifications. Years ago, when you saw a job specification, all they listed was security certifications necessary. Now, they meant anything. They meant CISM, CISP, CISA, CEH. But now we're seeing firms being a lot more prescriptive with qualifications and certifications they're looking for. But I don't want to put certifications on a pedestal here, because let's face it, and I don't mean to make any enemies by saying this, but it's a very lucrative industry. What certifications prove from my conversations with hiring managers and from the people I've placed is that it evidences that you have working experience of that particular field. Now, many people would pay for certifications and not have the adequate work experience and just assume that they're going to land that position. 9 out of 10, it doesn't really work that way. It's a case of getting the work experience first, which can be, a lot harder than it sounds. Even if you put your hand up at your existing firm and get involved with project, even on a more voluntary basis, that will bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to go, that's more likely to land you that position. And the certification is just an icing on the cake, and it is the ability to demonstrate to the hiring manager that you can back up your work experience with sound methodology around that.
How do you stand apart now from all these other candidates, since it seems like the job market is a little heating up more for candidates or for employers?
Standing apart is somewhat challenging, because for every application you put into a position, it's extremely competitive at the moment in terms of who you are up against. Even individuals with more experience looking to take less money because of the current climate. And by standing apart, you need to promote yourself, and you need to be a salesperson. That starts in your public profile, starts in your LinkedIn profile. And that also starts in your CV as well. The 63 million decision makers on LinkedIn, but yet when I look at some LinkedIn profiles of security practitioners, they, number one, don't sell themselves, and sometimes it's hard to tell specifically what they do within security. Now, I say that because 77% of recruiters use LinkedIn globally. Now, I'm not too sure what the other 23% are doing, to be completely frank with you. But by raising your profile and putting a good effort into your LinkedIn profile, as well as looking for positions, instead of going to the mountain, you also let the mountain come to Muhammad. Now, there are recruiters that work, not just myself who works for an external headhunter. There are people that work internally as recruiters for an organization whose main role is to find people for their position. How are they going to find them? They're going to find them doing a keyword search. So it's sometimes going back to basics. When you apply to positions, you must spell out security over and over again. You must spoon feed the first person viewing your CV. Your LinkedIn profile, without giving too much away, you don't necessarily need to give out any confidential tooling, but you must be able to sell your skill set and specifically what you do within security, either what you do or what you want to do, and you can tailor your profile to what you want to do. I'll tell you something that surprised me that a lot of people didn't know this. When you apply for a position, the first person to look at your CV, have the assumption that they don't know security, because the first person to look at your CV is not the decision maker at all. Often the decision maker will review your CV at the latter stages, the second stage, the third stage of the assignment. Now, if you're dealing with someone that doesn't know what security is, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be looking out for security. If security is not in your CV, if it's, let's just say it's pen testing, or you just abbreviate and use SOC, or you use SEAM all the time, there's a strong likelihood that your CV will be relegated down the list, even though you have the suitable skill set. So it's almost a case of stepping back and thinking in a more simplistic manner. On top of that, there are algorithms that will decipher whether your CV is shortlisted or whether your CV is rejected. And if these algorithms aren't programmed correctly by the first line, and by that I mean those viewing your CVs, then if you use too many abbreviations, then your CV could just get lost, whereas you very well could be suitable for that position. So it's good to go back to basics and realize some of those fundamentals.
I'm glad you addressed that. One of my questions that I had was, how do most HR folks know what they're looking for in a security professional? It sounds like most of them don't. So besides security, I know you don't want people just stuffing their resume with random keywords, but are there any like essential keywords every security professional should have besides spelling it out? Like, what are some examples of other keywords? Yeah.
All right. Yeah. One of the good things is to go straight to the qualifications instead of, obviously you need to be quite experienced for this, but instead of CISP, spell it out, Certified Information Security Systems Security Practitioner, then put CISP in brackets. TEH, instead of putting that, spell out, put security qualifications and then hyphen certified ethical hacker. The same as CompTIA. If you've got CompTIA, which is Security Plus, which is a really good entry level qualification, by the way, I highly recommend that. Spell that out. If you're just starting off in the field and you have degree in information systems and your dissertation was on something to do with security, spell that out. But even to the point of physical security, you need to spell that out. But also, there's something called, and I revert back to the phrase spoon feeding. Moving the LinkedIn profile aside, I want to let the listeners know something. There's nothing wrong with having 3 or 4 different versions of your CV. Nothing wrong with that at all. Let's just say your experience and you apply for a position that's more project orientated and you've led a number of projects to do with implementation of a new tool. You can have a PM orientated CV. Let's just say you also manage a team. You can have a more managerial related CV. Per CV, it must tie in with the job spec you are actually applying for, the position you are applying to. And look at the first few bullet points of what they're looking for, and your CV ideally should reflect this. So once again, you're either spoon feeding the person that doesn't know that much about security, or you're spoon feeding the algorithm and letting them know exactly what they're looking for. So everything on a reactive basis is within the job spec. On a proactive basis, it must be a happy medium within your LinkedIn profile. So security, vulnerabilities, threats, mitigation, spelling out your certification, even within your interest, follower of this security association or that security association. There has to be spoon-fed to, assume you're speaking to a child. And it sounds a little strange because if you're in security, let's face it, you're pretty smart, or at least smarter than me. But you need to dumb down what you've done, because the person looking at, and I don't mean to patronize anyone here, I'm sure there are a few exceptions to the rule, but in many situations, the person looking at your CV on the first instant is not a security expert and may not be working on the security role next. Have that in mind.
So I don't know, does this technique overboard then? If someone really wants a position, they would look at the job requirements and just create a unique CV or resume specifically for that position, rather than having like broad 4 of them. Maybe, is it overboard to have one tailored specifically in the words that the employer that they want to work for is using?
Yes, the reason I say that is not because it would look like subterfuge or anything, but because it's a lot of time and effort.
Right.
And we are seeing one position released and up to 200 applicants applying for that position in the first 48 hours. And that is not an exaggeration. So I wouldn't in good faith advise that. I think I've had a few threats via my email say that, I've just wasted 10 years of the life. But what will eventually happen is if you start off within that vein, you can have about 4, maybe 5 different versions of your CV, and then you will churn them out per their assignment. But I will add a disclaimer in this, and that is your LinkedIn profile must be a happy medium. And that takes a little bit of skill because you don't want to look like I'm not advocating anyone lying their CV at all. But if most experienced practitioners put everything they've done in their career within their CV, you'll be looking at as you Americans say, resume. So I'll stick to that. Sorry, right, guys. CV is not curriculum vitae, it's resume. So if you were to list everything you've done in your resume, that resume would be 15, 17 pages long and no one would read it. So be selective based on the positions you are applying to. And it's going to get to a point you're going to have resume 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You see this position, it's managing a team, must have technical knowledge of this tool. Boom. CV 4 is perfect for that. And your LinkedIn profile and all other social medias must be a happy medium.
Very cool. So besides technical skills, are there any common skills I guess, particularly in security that people look for? Teamwork, I guess, is just a buzzword everyone throws in, but is there anything kind of niche within security that's more of a soft skill that a lot of teams seem to be looking for?
Yes, this is niche, but it's often cliched, and I've heard it for a number of years, and I keep hearing it. And that is the ability to relay technical aspects to a non-technical audience. And that is from mid-level positions all the way through to CISO positions. And it makes sense. Because if you're in front of the business or if you're a CISO and you're in front of the board, they don't care how many, false positives you found in this month's metrics. What they care about is what does this mean for the organization? How does this affect our risk appetite? Does it mean, are we going to get fined? Have we been breached? How does that affect our bottom line? How does it affect the shareholders? So an appreciation for business as well, and also an appreciation that security works for the business and it is in line with their risk appetite. So that's a soft skill that has not gone away, and it's pretty transient from mid to senior level. Every now and again, if I speak to a hiring manager about maybe juniorish position, they might bring that up, but it's not really the end all and be all. Things such as an inquisitive mindset, I think that's absolutely crucial, not to accept things as they are. Those seem to be the key things. Yes, we hear of team player as well. That's also important. Yeah, I think that's how I would summarize it.
Nice. So I guess another question I have, this probably hurts for a recruiter, is I know the last time I got a position based on my resume, it's always been I knew someone and they go to my website and then they contact me. So with 200 people applying to the same position with a CV or a resume, is there anything else they could do to stand out? Is it best to have someone within that company that they could reach out to, or any other hacks like that they could use to help elevate themselves?
Yep, you're absolutely right. And, and a lot of these positions where you'd have 200 people apply in the first couple of days, it's often not from a recruiter. It's often from the internal recruitment team. And yes, it does kind of hurt. However, who do you know within that organization? Often you knew the predecessor in that organization. Saying this, remember, are you familiar with the phrase 6 shades of Kevin Bacon?
Yes. Yep.
You heard that phrase? Yeah. Well, I feel like it's 2 shades of security. It really is, because it's so incestuous. So if there's anyone within that organization, reach out to them so that they can put a good word for you. And the thing is, let me tell you something. Last week I received a call from, well, she's not Chief Information Security Officer, but she may as well be in regards to the level she's at. So she said to me, we're recruiting for this position. I'm not allowed to use recruiters, otherwise I would have used you. We've had 200 applicants. I said over 200 applicants, and this position has been out 3 days. We've got one internal recruiter guy because we let go of the rest. We don't know what to do, how we're going to, how we're going to manage this. I said, well, 200, how are you going to shift through that? I said, I'll tell you what, I worked on a similar position recently, which is true. And I'll send you some profiles. These guys are good. I know you can't use me within them. So sent her the profiles. I know at least one of them got an interview. I'm not getting anything for it. But the fact that someone close to her was able to get into her ear and said, look, this is the kind of individuals you want to be going for, any sort of connection. So it doesn't need to be someone that's worked there. And that's a beautiful thing about LinkedIn as well. I don't know any other network that can give you that sort of exposure to who you're connected with and who he or she is connected with at all. I think you need to be a little bit brave. You need to get out of your comfort zone and you need to ask the questions as well. If you see that position and you've seen how many applicants are applied, well, nothing wrong with picking up the phone to the hiring manager or sending an email to the hiring manager or HR, whoever's listed. Pick up the phone to them. Don't send them a message. These are all little things that help you stand apart. And I'm assuming that it may very well be out of your comfort zone because those kind of behaviors are usually associated with salespeople, people that can sell themselves. And, it's not in everyone's nature, but it pays a lot to get out of your comfort zone because you immediately stand yourself apart from the competition because you could tailor your CV all you want. But if you're 146 out of 200 applicants and they just looked at the first 50, well, it's much ado about nothing.
So I guess that's one of the benefits of using a really good recruiter like yourself. They're like, oh, this is Owanate certified person, so we'll bump them up in the queue. Is that one of the reasons or benefits of using a recruiter as well?
Yes, but it all depends on the organization as well. For my want and my advice, and everything I'm willing to give, even before I earn any sort of fee. A lot of the times, I don't know, we got a phrase in the UK, I don't know where the US have it, it's computer says no. And that phrase epitomizes the fact that processes can get in the way of common sense. So it could be a case of, no, we're not using any recruiters for this, or you're not on our preferred suppliers list. So we're just dealing directly with it. All this time, they could just look at the first 50 people and just do a word search and interview individuals that are not suitable. In the meantime, leave suitable applicants hanging. Whereas a recruiter such as myself can come in and say, look, all right, gone to the market with this. You're looking for someone with these particular skill sets. Well, I've shortlisted these 5 profiles for a number of reasons. One of them being that they come from a similar organizational size, so they can roll the sleeves up, or they're not siloed off within one particular skill set. I've got reservations about this one for this reason. However, this one's a shot, and you can really add color and real commentary to it. And it's left on the organizations to open their minds to that. Let me know if I'm going off on a rant here, but it amazes me how organizations will sing from the rooftops about we do things differently, and we want a diverse workforce, and we like to think outside the box, but they still follow the same stringent, archaic processes. Many organizations do. And that's to the detriment of the talent pool they're getting into their organization to not only secure their systems, peoples, and assets, but also to be an ambassador for their organization as well. So it's just one of the ongoing battles of a recruiter.
Okay, Owanate, before we go, is there one piece of actionable advice you can give to someone to help them with their security career or job finding efforts? And what's the best way to find, contact you, or learn about Bestman Solutions?
Sure. The main piece of advice I'd give is get out of your comfort zone and network. The more you network, the more individuals you'll meet, the more knowledge you will have about the organization's unique challenges they are facing. In terms of finding me, if you go to bestmansolutions.com and also on LinkedIn, it's Owanate Bestman at LinkedIn. I'm very approachable and happy to answer any questions. One thing I will add as well is that we were talking about certifications. Last month, I compiled a list of 10 free training courses and security, and the free. So instead of necessarily investing into a certification you're not sure you want to do, because there's time and more importantly, financial implications associated. Feel free to check that out as well. So it's got cryptography, some of the basics, pen testing as well, AWS, fundamentals. So these are all free, and it just gives you a chance to test it before you spend money on it. And that's, I don't run courses myself, but those are some free ones for you. So it's of no benefit to me.
Thank you, Owanate, for your security recruitment awesomeness. For links to everything of value we covered in this episode, head on over to testguild.com/S32. And while you're there, make sure to click on the Try It Today link under the exclusive sponsor section to learn all about Micro Focus Fortify, which is the recognized market leader in application security. So that's it for this episode of the Test Guild Security Podcast. I'm Joe. My mission is to help you succeed with creating end-to-end full-stack security testing awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Test Guild Security Podcast. Head on over to testguild.com for full show notes, amazing blog articles, and online testing conferences. Don't forget to subscribe to the Guild to continue your testing journey.